All right, let's do it. Let's talk about Elden Ring. So, one of my goals for the channel is to actually spend more time talking about the games that I buy, not just, buying endless amounts of games and going nowhere with it. Elden Rings is one that I definitely want to start off with. It's by far the game I spent the most amount of my limited time to play video games on this year, over 100 hours. I've got a lot of thoughts on it, but the more I tried to think about things and, you know, narrow down what I wanted to talk about, I really kept getting sidetracked into what I consider to be a larger issue that Elden Ring ties into. So I'm going to kind of talk about the game for a little bit, but I'm going to go in a different direction towards the end. Try to keep this somewhat nice and short and sweet for you guys. First of all, if you haven't played Elden Ring, and I probably will say this more than once, you got to give this game a shot. Even if you're not a Souls fan, like super hard game fan where you have to get good, I'm not that type of person either for the most part. But Elden Ring really is something different. More so than anything, the game builds in the ability to get good. You just have to put the time and effort. You don't have to get past a certain enemy to get to a checkpoint to save, to get, level up. You can do any of that on your own, which I think is one of the strongest points of the game with it being an open world. You really can decide how you want to play it, where you want to go, and how you want to tackle the enemies. Which is also ties into how you set up your character from the very beginning, what weapons you decide to use. You know, there's so many different things throughout the game you can modify your character with that you can really make it your own play style, which made it so much fun. Besides that, it's one of the best open world games I've ever played. It really makes it worthwhile to go exploring, to go out hunting and find new items or collect material. The material is actually useful. Breath of the Wild is one of my favorite games of all time, but at a certain point, there's no point in collecting anything. It's all useless. You don't need it at all. In Elden Ring, you really can utilize every single plant and item, everything you pick up can be utilized even towards the end game, which is really nice to see them able to incorporate more and make stuff more useful, which I really appreciated. This whole conversation about is the game too hard or should it have an easy mode, which I didn't even know was like going to be a discussion, but came up when the game came out. I think that all is kind of silly. The game certainly is hard, but you can make it easier, but in a lot of different ways. So one of those is I actually spent a fair amount of the game time playing the game in co-op with friends because I love playing video games online with friends. I don't get to see my friends in real life very often, so we do play a lot of video games. That was my one of my biggest criticisms of the game is that they didn't allow you to play multiplayer the way you want to. You go into someone else's world, your character is handicapped in terms of what you're able to do, how many like heal pots and stuff you can bring into their world. And I do somewhat understand why they did it. They're trying to carry over the experience from previous Souls games. However, I really wish they wouldn't have done that because this is a totally different style game. Being an open world, I just felt like it would have been more fun co-op if you just let players have full reign, enjoy the game the way they want to. But I can't see it both ways. Besides that, it's one of the best looking games I've seen. The world's beautiful. The characters are cool. Uh, you know, it runs super smooth. It's a beautiful game. It's nearly perfect, which is great. I know it was delayed once, but I'm not one of those people who gets upset about delays. It was worth having one delay because this game is almost perfect in all those respects. I guess my other big nitpicks are I was not necessarily a huge fan of the majority of the armor. The weapons were a little better, but the armor was all they tried to make it so realistic and detailed that they all kind of sort of for the most part look too similar to really be excited about changing them. There, of course, were some armor sets that looked super cool, super different, and that was fun. But by and large, the too much of it was too similar because they weren't trying to go for that over the top look that it just kind of muddied together. And I guess if it's, I have a couple other small criticisms. One, some of the exploring, as fun as it was, you started to get routine, like where you knew what you were going to find. Like you found a little abandoned village with some soldiers guarding it. You know you're going to find a cellar that you can, open and go down into and find either a chest or like a vendor or something there. anytime you find a huge cliff face up against the mountains, if you travel along those cliffs, you're going to find at least one cave that's a mini dungeon. So it kind of got a little predictable in that regard. Not that that's necessarily a bad thing. It helps people uh, you know find things that they would otherwise be too hard to find. I guess maybe, but it just kind of like started to get a little samey towards the end for me, or predictable. The last one, and this is once again, these are all kind of nitpicky. They're not even major criticisms, but I think, oh man, this one might be the most, not going to say controversial. The one people disagree with is I was not necessarily a huge fan of the enemy designs, maybe especially the bosses. I think because they were all so much bigger, and they move so fast, and there's so much detail that the details actually start to get muddied, and you can't really make out a lot of what they look like. Uh, I wish there was maybe a little more variety in the humanoid bosses, and some of the just general adversaries in the game too. Obviously, there's some very cool looking monster ones and stuff like that. They all. It's not that any of them looked bad. They just started to look samey, or it was hard to differentiate different parts of them. I don't know. Very minor criticisms, because that's all I can really come up with. I don't have a lot of big criticisms for this game because it is so well done. So, anyways, you know, I don't know how much more I can say about a game this big, this popular, that hasn't already been said before. You're gonna get, the majority of people, the consensus is going to be that this is an absolutely fantastic game. I would give it easily in the mid 90s, if not close to 100. It's just so well done. Even if it's not your style of game, it's not my style of game, I can tell you that. There were certainly several bosses I would have not been able to beat anytime soon if I didn't have a friend come in and help me, basically do it for me. But it carried me on to the next part of the game. So I'm not gonna lie and say I was able to do it on my own. But that's a great thing. Even if you don't have personal friends, you can just draw people in. So, if you don't think it's an accessible game, something that you could do on your own, you don't have to. There's a lot of discussion always about how difficult Souls games are. Those, I think, are like the, uh, you know, cornerstone of how you judge how difficult games are, which rightly so. But this one definitely has a different approach to it, or at least you can approach it differently. So, you know, I listen to all those criticisms. I listen to how much people, absolutely, these people, everyone else loves it. I've watched plenty of people play on YouTube and wherever else that are just so phenomenally good at the game that I would never be that good, but it's so much fun to watch. This is one of those single player games that's actually fun to watch online, for a long time. I don't know. There's not a whole lot original I can add other than to lend my support, saying that I think the game's totally worthwhile and you should give it a shot. But for me, like I keep coming back to, and this is where I'm going to kind of shift gears a little bit. When I was, thinking about this game, like, do I have anything unique to say about it? No, not really. It's just a super great game. I loved almost everything about it. What am I going to talk about? Where my mind kept going is what does Elden Ring mean to the future of gaming, or to the way gaming's going right now? And that's where I think there's not enough discussion. Elden Ring is, in my opinion, the most important game to come out in years. It is not only a phenomenal, huge AAA game, but it came out complete. You didn't need to spend any money on DLC on day one. It wasn't a buggy mess. They're not trying to, sell you like skins for your character. You have to go out and earn them. All right, so let's try this again. Why is Elden Ring such an important game for this year? Because it's a complete game, which sounds really stupid and it shouldn't matter, but of all the games that have come out this year, Elden Ring is proof that a company can still make a huge AAA budget game with tons of content, tons to do, actually complete game. And sell it to us, the consumers, at a reasonable price, and and whole. It's such a rarity, and they really deserve a lot of credit for that. So many games this year have come out incomplete or uh, broken, or you have to download a bunch of stuff. And yes, obviously with Elden Ring, there's been downloads too, but they're already taking a complete game and tweaking it to making it even better. And they weren't like massive downloads on day one. All the game was on the disc. They're not trying to sell you microtransactions or DLC right away. Though once again, it's now that it's such a phenomenal game, they're coming out DLC. That's great. You know, even Nintendo, who's known for the strength of their own IPs and coming out with such strong, finished games, they've really been lacking this year as well. You know, Sony, I feel like they're just dedicated towards coming out with, you know, experiences where they can wring you out as much money as possible. It's not even about having good games anymore. Microsoft, when's the last time they even came out with a game? So I don't know. It's Elden Ring deserves so much credit for what it was able to accomplish, and it really makes you hopeful that at least some companies still care about what to me should be the most important thing, which is coming out with an amazing experience for the consumer. Making money obviously is important. I hope they make a ton of money. I want them to be successful and either do another one of these games or whatever their next project is. But if the focus is making money before making a good game for a company, then I don't feel like we should keep rewarding that. And that's been pretty much the way everything has gone this year, I feel. Elden Ring is one of the very few games that has really like transcended that and like put the gamers first, put the experience first, and like made an amazing quality game. So, anyways, I don't know if any of this makes sense to any of you guys. I just really wanted to discuss it a little bit. I really need to actually start talking about games instead of just doing pickup videos. It is very difficult because I don't know if I'm any good at talking about games. It's hard to talk about games when you're not. It's not something you're used to doing in this manner, this venue. But yeah, hopefully I can get doing more in the zone. I don't even know. I thought this was a good game to start off with because it really is a phenomenal game. If you haven't tried it, give it a chance. Don't listen to all the controversy about it being too difficult. There should be an easy mode, which by the way is stupid. It should definitely not have an easy mode. It's perfect the way it is. Give it a shot if you haven't already. If you're really like hell bent on just you're not your style game, you're not interested in it. I totally get that, but there are very few gaming experiences like this anymore coming out where they're really putting the gamer first. So anyways, guys, that's my final thoughts on Elden Ring. Hope you enjoy. I hope you enjoy the game. I'll catch you guys next time.